Welcome back to the Prosperity Playbook podcast. I have a special guest again today. I have my friend Jess Larum with me, and she is a fractional COO. And we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about what that means if you've never heard that term before. But we're going to talk about business vision, exit strategies, kind of all of those things, scaling your business, because she is wicked smart about this stuff, and she's going to blow your mind. So stay tuned. We're actually going to do 2 episodes with her. But as we dive in, welcome, and tell us what it means to be a fractional COO.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. I feel like I hear all the time, oh my gosh, I've never heard that before. It is a big title that basically means I am an operations consultant, but I focus primarily on leadership, strategy, planning, yes, within your operations, but span across all the major functions of business. So I can dive into your sales, your HR, your obviously operations. So it's not limited to, I guess just operations.
Okay. And you work with big businesses, small businesses, all of the above, I assume?
Yep. So my specialty is in that hundreds of thousands to about 12 to 15 million. And that kind of goes back to why I started doing this work to begin with is I was working in a business that was larger than that and realized that I like small business more. And then they also need that executive level strategy and oversight, but it doesn't make sense for them to have a full-time internal executive.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And Jess's company, by the way, is called Liminal Ops. We'll tell you at the end of the episode how to connect with her, so stay tuned for that. But one of the things that I've experienced over time, I work with a lot of business owners on the mortgage side of things. And what I find is that, especially tradespeople, they're good at their trade and they're not so great at running businesses and doing the employee stuff and the computer work and all of those things. So that is, I can see a huge need for this to just help people, because they don't, like you said, they don't have a budget to have a full-time COO or CEO or CFO or all of the above, certainly. So having somebody that they can have on a contract basis seems like a no-brainer to me.
And I think that's like consistent across all entrepreneurial ventures. Like typically somebody gets into owning their own business because they were passionate about something.
Yeah.
Not because they're like me and love operations. And then they pick up these little snippets along the way, whether through other business owners or through books that they read or classes that they take. But I think the biggest differentiator between that approach and my approach is I'm looking at it truly from a systems standpoint. So how all of the core functions of your business interact with each other, how often they're being reviewed. And something I say all the time is every system is designed perfectly to get the results that it's getting. And so even if you say, what systems? I don't have systems, you definitely do, because you're getting some sort of consistent result.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I really do feel like there's so many people that could benefit from this. And the other thing I really think is, even if business, like somebody's business is running really well, most people don't think about that exit strategy. They don't think, I'm going to sell this business someday. And I think there's a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, that are like an owner operator, that they are that business. So I think it's a bigger conversation around, how do I make this thing something I can sell, right?
Absolutely. And it's something that business owners should be preparing for a lot earlier than they think they should.
So like how many years before somebody wants to sell do you think they need to start thinking about that?
At least 3 to 5.
Okay. I think that makes a lot of sense, maybe even more in some cases,
Yeah.
right? So I think we'll dive into that a little bit further along the way too, but I'm curious. I want to find out, I know a little of your story, but our audience probably doesn't. So tell us how you started here. How did you get into this? You said you love kind of the operations side of things, but where did that love come from?
Yeah, and it would surprise anybody who knew me as a kid and as a teenager that operations would be my chosen profession. But I went to art school. I got a degree in large-scale fine art oil painting.
Wow, okay.
And so I went to a college that was known for really encouraging their student body to understand why they were making work, what their work was doing, what conversations were happening around their work or what conversations they were trying to catalyze, I guess.
Mm.
And so the primary focus of my studies was systems design. I studied the history of systems, the psychology behind systems, the evolution of them, and big systems like educational, economic, city planning, that sort of thing.
Wow. Okay.
So I got into the
Very
theory.
macro level.
Yes. Yeah. And I got into the theory, the philosophy behind systems. And I made my way to New York. I had an exhibition out there, a studio residency out there in Manhattan, which was fantastic.
Wow.
It was such a beautiful experience that I was grateful for. However, I realized I do not want to be a part of fine arts. So it was like, this is the end of the road for me in fine arts. So I went back to Minneapolis, back to the drawing board, was preparing for grad school, and actually got scooped up by this high growth startup. It was a coffee company, and had some heavy hitter investors behind it. And part of their business plan was to go after Starbucks.
Oh, wow.
So
that's a big vision.
yeah. So we were building this, what we would refer to as a business in a box, a repeatable system that we could then roll out in multiple major metropolitans simultaneously.
Like as a franchise?
Kind of. We weren't going to franchise.
Okay.
And this investor group had built and sold multiple companies before. So the idea was build it to a point where they could sell it for what they put into it, obviously, plus a cherry on the top. But yeah, so the CEO of that approached me and he said, I know you're kind of doing your own thing, but what if you came and did this with us? And the first project we worked on together was a cafe that was underperforming. And it was losing $50,000 a month.
Ouch.
And he said, we have a quarter to turn this around. And in 90 days, we took it from losing $50,000 a month to earning $30,000 a month. So an $80,000 turnaround.
That's insane in 90 days.
Yeah, it was gnarly. And it was like a boot camp in operations. Up until this point, I hadn't had a ton of exposure to it, but I knew that I understood systems. And so I approached everything with that sort of thinking and ended up being their director of operations and helping them scale to, we had eventually 7 locations and we were moving into Denver and Scottsdale.
Wow. So I got to ask, when you jumped into that project in the beginning, was there things like right off the bat, you were like, oh my gosh, this, and this, or was it just a combination of like little tiny tweaks or both?
Both. Yeah, there was some glaring issues for sure. And then something you'll hear me say all the time is it's in the seconds and the minutes. Like you think that doesn't really matter, but it does.
Interesting. I love that. Well, let's kind of start with vision and we'll work our way towards that exit strategy at the end and talk about scaling in the begin or in the middle of that. So vision is obviously the starting point for a lot of businesses. I don't know that everybody really does start there. I think they just start going after customers. And also I will tell you as a salesperson, like if you spend too much time on the fluffy stuff, you'll do that forever and then you will starve to death because you won't have any sales. So I think there's a balance in there. But I find for myself 21 years into my business that I really need to go back to that vision sometimes. That's the part that keeps me motivated. And when I'm not sure what the next step is, it's the vision that I need to come back to. Do you agree with that, or why is vision so important for businesses?
So there's this book that I love. It's called The Road Less Stupid. I recommend everybody.
I'm reading that right now.
Yeah.
You must have told me to read that. I'm like, wait, that can't be a coincidence.
It's a fantastic book. There's a quote in there at one point where he says, lose your why, lose your way. And your vision is really what helps you define your why. And if I can talk about our conversation the other day.
Of course.
Renee and I were having a conversation about her and her husband's daughter and how you have a vision for your children's life, which for a lot of people is their most sacred area of their life. Yeah. And so as you keep that vision in your head, when you think about making decisions for your daughter, you press it up against that vision. If you did not have that vision, if you didn't have any framework to press decisions up against, the decisions become kind of meaningless and uninformed.
That makes a lot of sense. So how How do you sit down with an owner that's really never thought through a written, I'm assuming this should be a written vision.
Hmm.
Okay. So how do you start that process with somebody that is like, I just jumped in and I went right past vision?
Yeah, we can come at it from a lot of different ways. I think it first and foremost depends on the owner and what motivates them.
Mm-hmm.
I have some owners that are fluffy and very charismatic and like they're people, and then I have some owners that are execution focused, very logical, very data driven. And so I think it depends on those two different people, but we can start as simple as like, if you could wave a magic wand and make your life look a certain way, what would it look like? How does your business fit into that? If there were areas of your business that you could wave a magic wand and not have to touch or look at for the rest of the time you spend, what would those areas be and why? I had a good friend frame it to me this way the other day of what happened last year that embarrassed you in your business, and what happened last year that made you really proud. What was a story that you wanted to tell? Like, we have to push ourselves into this place of abstract thinking in order to get to a place of, oh, actually, that's where I want to go. That's where I want to be.
I'm furiously scribbling some notes here because I actually love that, of thinking about what embarrassed me about my business last year and what made me proud about that. And I think those are actually really good topics to kind of meditate on a little bit and kind of really dive into. And I love the magic wand questions because I think it takes down the walls of that. You're not saying I'm going to make it into this. It takes down the like, well, that isn't possible. It's just like, no, it's a magic wand. It's magic. You can have anything you want. And it gets people to think about what's real, what's like maybe in their heart as opposed to their brain. I love that. Okay. So getting that started. And then I got to believe that conveying the vision to your employees is really, really critical.
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
So, something I say all the time is that there are a lot of vision problems that business owners believe are people problems. We have high turnover. Okay, of course, that can be for a lot of reasons, but one of those reasons could be that they don't see the future for themselves. They don't understand if the company is growing, if it is growing, what direction is it growing in, what are potential roles that could open up for me. And so without that vision, your employees they can't understand their long-term trajectory within the company.
I think that's a really good point. My husband owns a landscaping company, as you know, and several years ago, he had an employee that had been with him a long time, and all of a sudden, this guy wasn't going to come back for the next season. And Josh was like, I don't know, like, what's going on? I thought things were great. And I was like, well, here he goes, I offered him more money and all. And I was like, well, did you ask him what he wants? It might not be that. And so he did. He went and sat him down, and he's like, I just feel like I can't grow within this company because he's like, I want to be a manager. I want to have more responsibility, but I don't want to manage a bunch of employees. And Josh was like, oh, okay. And he just created him a position that didn't have to deal with employees, but that let him have more say in some of the jobs and some of the just more in-depth things. And the guy's been with him forever now. I think, I don't know how long he's been there, but over 10 years, he's one of his key employees. And it was simply just about finding out what was important to him, not assuming what was important to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think we've all heard that quote, or kind of, it's a little bit cliche, but get everybody rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Without a vision, without a target, nobody knows what that direction is. And so they're not going to be able to work together easily. As well as if the vision is constantly changing, like there are a lot of owners that fit that visionary box very well. So they're like, oh, we're going over here. We're going to start doing this service, or we're going to offer that product or whatever.
Yep.
Then you have these employees that are charging towards a goal, but then the goal changes. And so now they're charging towards a different one. They realize all that work they did is, and they start losing motivation.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. Yeah, I think, and I think it is fair that sometimes vision will change over time, but it shouldn't be constantly. I wouldn't think. And But I think you're right. People need to see how this can be a career, not just a job for them, maybe,
Yes.
because that's what will get them to stick around. That's what will. Because everybody wants to feel like they're growing. I maybe not everybody, but the employees that you want
Yes.
probably want to feel like they're growing. They have room for advancement. And I think for me, one of my challenges has always been I need to delegate everything that's not bringing business in the door, like not rainmaking. And I think most business owners have to do that, but maybe some of them don't want to because the sales part is the part where everybody wants to hide from. But I think from the employee standpoint, if you're not there and you're not on the job site and you're not doing the work that they're doing, sometimes it's hard for them to see what you're doing on the back end. They've never run a business, so they don't understand the rainmaking part. They don't understand that you're busting your butt to bring more business in the door unless they've tried to do it themselves. So I think that can be a challenge. Have you seen that with businesses? And
yeah, this is a great segue into what I call is the feedback loop. So with vision, so let's say we've arrived at this place where we know where we're going. We have some general, we want these projects done. We want to be at X million dollars or $100,000 or whatever. We want X amount of people on the seat. This is what our org chart looks like. Now we're charging towards that. When we're in the strategic planning phase and we're mapping out what are our milestones, what are our quarterly initiatives in order to achieve that vision, we're sharing that with the staff. And so we're saying, this is what we're working on and this is what we're not working on. And so it allows them to get a peek behind the curtain, and it removes that sort of employer-employee or leadership and field worker tension of like, what are you even doing anyway? Because you're sharing it on a regular cadence. And what I recommend is quarterly. Is
I like that.
This quarter we're working on this, and we're putting XYZ thing on the back burner until the next quarter, and then the quarter after you say we accomplished these things, and now we're setting forth to accomplish those.
I love that. Well, and I think I like the quarter thing, like kind of a 90-day sprint of this is what we're going to work really hard on at this point. And I think even sometimes for businesses, it can be smaller goals than that. Like Josh will a lot of times set a goal for the week, and he'll tell the guys like, okay, here's what all the work we have to get done this week. And I'll pay you for whatever. Like if you get it done early, I'm still going to pay you for the whole week, and then you can have a long weekend, but it has to meet quality standards, of course. Like that's number one. And they like that because it gives them that chance to work at their pace, to stay a little longer on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and then be done at noon on Thursday and go have a long weekend with their family or their friends. And of course, I like that too, because then that's more lake time for us. But
yeah,
it's been a good thing to kind of let them control their work a little bit more. And I think finding ways to incentivize people, he'll do like employee of the pay period or whatever, and they get little bonuses and Moss Creek cups and whatever else. Or if they take pictures of the work that they've done, he'll give them a little something if he uses it for the social media or whatever. And then he has to take less pictures, but it makes them feel good and gets them to be proud of the work that they're doing too.
Well, and let's stick with that for a second, because I think what I hear oftentimes about my generation, and especially in the Valley, is that how much you have to pay people to get them to work hard.
Yeah.
And I think we're missing the fact that there are so many ways to incentivize your employees other than just compensation.
Yeah.
And if you're not talking to them and getting to know them and figuring out what actually drives them, you might be giving them a $5 raise, and then 4 months later they're leaving, and you're like, wait, what happened? They're like, oh, I just wanted to go on vacation.
Right.
Like I didn't need $5 more an hour. Like I was appreciative of it. But a perfect example of this is a company that I was working with, paid 100% of the employee benefits, like health insurance, including their partners and their kids. Dang. And it was, you can imagine, a huge expense and not scalable was my first kind of like, we're not going to go very far with this.
Yeah.
And so we explored some options for pivoting that. And what we ended up doing was paying 50% of the employee health insurance, which is a lot more standard. Yeah. And offering a $100 wellness stipend a month. And when we released that information to say, hey, by the way, this change is coming, everyone was stoked because they could use that $100 towards their Bridger Bowl pass or their Bridger
Gym
Creek
membership,
pass.
maybe.
Yes, or a Peloton. Like nobody was using their health insurance, but that $100, and it was a huge cost savings to the company.
I love that. Well, I think you're right. I think different things matter to different people. Another example, Josh has an employee that is a guy that has come back a couple years. He started as a GigWorks employee, just like a short-term thing, and he actually really enjoyed working for Josh and stuck with him. But it's a guy that, like, frankly, lives in his camper. Like, money clearly is not the most important thing to him. But he got employee of the pay period one time, and Josh kind of like gave him, you know, like I said, some little Moss Creek trinkets and some things like that. And he came up to Josh later that day and was like, I have never been recognized for anything in my life. And this guy's probably in his 40s.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I've always worked hard at jobs and nobody's ever recognized me as doing a good job. And Josh was like, it like broke my heart, but it also made me so glad that I did recognize him. And he did. He came back again this year. And, you know, Josh finds all kinds of little things that he can do for those employees that work hard, even just like special things for that guy's dog, you know, because he knows that the dog is like his favorite thing. So figuring out what is in their heart and making that happen for them is pretty cool. Yeah.
What our internal motivators are. And oftentimes, I mean, I think we've all had experiences working at companies where we're unhappy.
Yeah.
The money's not going to fix it.
No. I think that's a really good point. I mean, I always use the example, like, Wells Fargo could call me back and say they were going to pay me $10 million a year, and I would laugh in their face. Like, I will never, ever, ever work for you again, no matter what, because some things just are not worth the pain of what you're actually doing. So, so let's transition. You talked a little bit about scalability, and I think not everybody has the goal to scale their business, but I think a lot of people do. I mean, I think that's the goal is, well, actually, before we talk about that, I want to talk about how sometimes people have the wrong idea of what owning a business is. So when Josh and I were younger and he first had started his business, there were so many people that told us, oh man, you're so lucky you get to do that. You don't have to deal with the boss. You can take time off whenever you want. You know, you can do whatever. And Josh was kind of like, I work more now that I'm a business owner than I did when I worked for somebody else.
Yep.
I think people have to go into owning a business for the right reasons. And it's not so you can take time off whenever you want. You'll get there. You'll get there eventually, but that is not how it starts. Do you agree?
Yes, I completely agree. I saw this post on social media the other day that was like, your business owner friends will say things like, I'll never work a 9-to-5 again. I prefer to work my 137 hours a week whenever I want, which is fun now to be in a position where I'm a business owner and I'm supporting business owners, because now I deeply understood it before. Yeah. I have a much deeper understanding of it now.
I'm sure that that's true. I've found that with mortgage side of things too, where my husband is self-employed. I understand self-employed people much more than your typical loan officer does. I know what they're doing on their tax returns. I know how it works. And people appreciate that. Okay, so then let's transition in and talk about the scalability piece. So unless there's somebody that really just didn't want to work hard at all, and that's why they started their business, chances are they do want to build something. They want to build a bigger income or a legacy or something else. So are there certain keys to scalability that you just have to hit in order to make it happen, or things you need to do before you can scale?
Yeah. So a few things with the why behind your vision, like that needs to, when somebody comes to me and they say they want to scale for scaling's sake, okay, I caution them heavily, heavily, heavily against that. Because,
so what would that mean? Scale for scaling's sake, just to like say that they grew something big? Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yes. Like, what is the underlying reason behind driving to get more exposure for the business? Like, are you trying to serve more people? Are you trying to shift the narrative in an industry? Do you want to employ people? Like, what is your underlying why? Because scaling is hard. Yeah. And like we talked about before with those filters, you're going to have a lot of decisions to make throughout that process. What employees to keep, what employees not to keep, what roles to create, where you're going to invest your funds. so on and so forth.
How many employees you actually want to deal with.
Exactly.
That's a big one.
It can, when the going gets tough, it can feel like a fruitless endeavor if you don't have that underlying why. So I'd say number one, don't just scale for scaling's sake. Understand why you're doing it. Number two, I like to have a focus on sustainable scaling.
I was just going to bring that up actually, because I have a friend who actually, coincidentally, her husband also owns a landscaping company. And last year he had all these big projects and he had like 75 employees, which was crazy.
Wow.
And then this year he didn't have those projects and he had to lay off a ton of people and it felt terrible for them. So I think scaling sustainably is really important if you're going to do it.
Absolutely. And this kind of plays into, I talked to you a little bit about that my approach might be different from others because it truly comes from a system standpoint. And one of the underlying philosophies of all of the work that I do is called the rhizome. And I won't go too far down the rabbit hole of that, but it talks about the botanical, it comes from the botanical rhizome. So if you think of a root system. And one of the core principles of the philosophy is that everything impacts everything.
Okay.
And if you try to create disparate systems, they will be inherently broken because they're not able to evolve by the impacts of others. And so when we talk about scaling and we talk about sustainable scaling, especially where you get to a certain level and it's not a point of no return, but you have to go through the painful part of laying off people. Then we also talk about systems behind your data. So are you looking, do you have visibility? Do you have data to begin with? Is it reliable? Are you looking at it regularly? Is it telling you where you've been and where you're going? Are you making decisions off of that? Because without that regular cadence of reviewing accurate data and having that visibility into your company, you do run the risk of exactly what your friend went through is all of a sudden one day you wake up and the floor falls out. And you're like, what happened?
That would be heartbreaking.
Yeah. And so when we talk about, I think it was funny, I was talking with Josh, and he was like, you say systems, but I don't get it.
Not my husband, Josh, another Josh that we're friends with that owns a physical therapy company.
And I did struggle to try to explain it to him, but if you think about that root system, the botanical rhizome, and you think about how you pull this over here and it's going to pull that over there and everything starts to impact itself. So the systems that we have around people are going to affect the systems we have around profit, are going to affect the systems we have around planning, and so on and so forth. And so when we have this, we talked about scaling, we talked about strategic planning, we talked about the communication feedback loop to your people and how that contributes to their satisfaction or dissatisfaction. We also want to talk about a meeting cadence, like so now we're talking about data and how often are we reviewing it? Who's reviewing what data at what points so that we don't get blindsided?
That's a good point. I think there's a happy medium with meetings though, right? Like there's death by meeting and, it could have been an email. We've all seen the memes around that. I hate being in a long meeting that nothing got accomplished by the end.
One of my rules of thumb is it should start with an agenda and it should finish with a who's going to do what by when. And if we haven't started with an agenda and we haven't finished with a who's going to do what by when, it probably wasn't valuable.
Should have been an email.
Exactly.
All right.
So back to the scaling side of things, the other mistake that I see a lot of people making, a lot of business owners making, leadership teams, is they have a focus on sales, but not a tandem focus on building the operational infrastructure to support those sales.
Oh man, that is such a huge one in my industry. In the mortgage side of things, it's like, it's always a right sizing situation. You know, all of a sudden the market ramps up and we throw all these loans in the pipeline and the ops team isn't ready for them. And on the flip side, like when it's booming and everything's great, and then everything slows down and you've got all these ops team that you're like, what, how do we keep them busy
Yes.
now? And it is a very fine balance between profitability and being ready when the next thing hits. And our company is like staffing up like crazy right now, which I think is good. They are hiring a lot on both sides of it, but I think that is the balance. It's a tough balance, I guess, is all I wanted to say.
Yeah. And scaling, I think, so people, my clients get probably annoyed of hearing me say it all the time, but scaling will surface issues you didn't know you had, and it will compound issues you already have.
That makes a lot of sense. I think if you have a good system for your existing employees and then you add a bunch more employees, they can go into the system. They have training processes. Training is a big one for me. When I hired my first assistant at Cornerstone, the training was like non-existent. And I was like, dear God, now I have to do this. And then the last one was just this huge process that he went through for weeks once he got trained. I was like, whoa, where did this come from? So I think that if you have to train somebody once, build a system, build a process. And what do you recommend for that? Do you have like manuals? Do you have training videos? Does it depend?
It totally depends. I mean, it depends on what kind of position you're training. Like if you're, I don't know if you're familiar with the technician and the manager and the entrepreneurial mindset. With technicians, people who enjoy hands-on learning, they're probably going to be tactile learners. So to have them sit down and read through a manual is not going to
happen.
No,
they're not going to learn anything.
No. Yeah. So those two, it's going to surface problems that you didn't know you had, and it's going to compound issues you already have. And then what I see oftentimes is it throws a business into a reactive state. So where they were like, okay, we're feeling really good. We're able to handle this amount of revenue, this amount of sales. Like, let's add on a few more, see how it goes. Like they hit a point where the whole organization, now we're just firefighting. And we're trying
That's a terrible feeling.
Yes. So if you have a tandem effort on both sales and operations and you're planning, so you're looking out for, okay, where are potential risks? What do we need to prioritize and when? Then you can keep those two in close proximity to each other without one superseding the other.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I think there's a culture thing there too. I've worked for companies where sales was kind of the redheaded stepchild, and that's kind of a hard place to be. The company I work for now is very salesperson focused because they know nobody has a job without their salespeople. And but granted, we don't have jobs if we don't have our ops people to do a good job on the back end. If we can't, I've learned that at other companies that if your ops people suck, then the customer experience is going to suck. So both are equally important. And I think they have to respect each other.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about like your internal customers. Like I build relationships with my underwriters and my processors just like I would with a referral partner.
Yeah.
Because I want their help.
Yes. And I think we've talked about this before, but so when I was the CEO out in Oregon, I still am young, but I was so young. And my whole C-suite was 20 years older than me.
That's hard.
Yeah. I remember when I got the job offer, I was like, oh my gosh, like they're not going to trust me. They're not going to respect me. They're not going to want to follow me.
Yeah.
And I had to get rid of those insecurities really fast, be really comfortable and confident in what I know and what I do not know. But I think one of the more successful things was positioning myself as a leader, but as a conductor. I am coming into this with a specific skill set. All of you have a very specific skill set that I do not have. My job isn't to come in and replace the CFO or the COO or the CMO or the CPO or any of them. My job is to pull out the magic so we can all work together well.
I love that. That makes so much sense to me. And also, there's no ego in that. You're not coming in and saying, like, I'm here to tell you all how to do things better.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to win you any friends.
No, absolutely not.
And they're just going to bow their neck.
Yes. And I see that sort of at operations and sales. They are different people. They butt heads. But if they both come at it from the standpoint of you have a specific skill set and I have a specific skill set and we're both necessary here.
Yeah. I think that's the way it has to be. And you bring up a good point about the age thing. When I started at a title company when I was 24, actually I was like 22, and I looked like I was about 12, and people would look at me and just be like, "Oh, great, this girl isn't gonna know jack shit." And then, so I made it my business to like really know it, so that I could blow people away. But there was a gal that that was hired after me, and so it was my job to train her as an escrow officer. And she was in her, I'm gonna guess 50s at the time, and she wanted nothing to do with me. She did not. She could not believe that I could know anything at that age, and it was adversarial, and it was really hard for me. And it, like you said, you had to find the confidence, and you just had to keep going. And eventually I left and went to mortgage lending, and she's still an escrow officer to this day. People are like, "You trained her?" I was like, well, as much as she would let me. But it is a hard thing to come in as somebody young. And what is your advice for that younger generation that maybe is coming in on how to build those relationships and find that respect?
Yeah. Truly. So I guess three things. One, I had a mentor tell me at one point, you armored up. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, your posture changed and you armored up. And I became colder. I became I wasn't receptive. I wasn't listening. I got rigid, and that armoring was rooted in insecurity.
Sure.
It had nothing to do with the person sitting across the table from me. It had everything to do with myself.
Right.
And so I think for young people, when you carry those insecurities, your doubts, your fears are your worst enemy. That's what's going to cause you to stumble, not whatever you think the person across the table from you is
Such
thinking.
a great point. Such a great point.
And so I really did have to and with that particular position, we were in such a wartime period that I had to make decisions quickly and be as sure as I possibly could that those were the right decisions. And I did win the respect of the team, so I knew they were following me. But I had to get really, really comfortable with what I knew and what I did not know. And as soon as I was in a space of, okay, I'm really unsure here. I haven't seen this before. I'm not sure quite how to approach this. I had to get curious, ask a lot of questions, bring in extra help, and be very open about, like, I do not know.
I was just going to say, I think that there's something really important in there, and I don't want to lose that in this conversation, because being able to acknowledge what you don't know and asking those other people for their part of the expertise, I think is huge. I think that is part of how you gain respect, is letting them shine in that moment too. I think that's an underutilized tool, is helping other people shine. Yeah. Because they will be loyal to you forever. They will be more satisfied in their job, and you will get the best out of them, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've worked for leaders who keep everything really close to their chest, and they want to keep their direct reports down because they're scared.
I see.
And then I've worked for leaders who share openly and kind of come alongside that rising tide raises all ships.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. Well, let's transition away from the scaling thing, and let's start talking about the exit strategy. And I think the first thing people think of when they start talking about exit strategy is they want to sell it. And so I think that comes down to valuation. And so I think there's some huge misconceptions around what people's businesses are worth. I mean, obviously, if you have equipment, it's worth a certain thing. But if you, like for me, as a mortgage business, I don't really have something to sell because I am my business. I mean, I have a database of people, but if most of them have 2% and 3% mortgages, that's not, and it's not me on the other end of the phone, that probably doesn't really help me have something to sell. So how do you value somebody's business, and is that part of being able to sell it? Is it not just being you?
Well, where I would push back on your book of business not being sellable is if you can create a repeatable process and a plug and play,
okay, that makes sense.
A pipeline, something where if you removed Renee and you put somebody else in there that had equal amount of knowledge and ability to execute like, of course, there is some secret sauce, and I talk about this a lot with my clients' employees. There's secret sauce behind a business owner that made them successful.
That makes sense.
But so anyway, what was the question?
The question the question was around like how do you value what your business is worth, and do you have to be able to step away from it? Is that part of the goal of making it saleable, is to get you out of the center of it?
Yeah. So a lot of the work that I did prior to Liminal Ops was in mergers and acquisitions, process of buying and selling companies. And I was both on the buyer side and the seller side as an executive operator.
Fun. I bet that was super cool.
Yeah.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah. But I also worked, 16-hour days, got 2 days off a month, and it was brutal.
Yeah.
So anyway, point being that a lot of experience in the M&A space. There are valuators. I am not a valuator. There is somebody that will come in and do an audit on your company, and they will tell you that based on the market, based on your financials, this is what your company is worth. However, what I feel business owners are very ill prepared for is the due diligence process. So you go through this first phase where it's kind of collecting these standard documents and getting this deck put together of here's the areas of opportunity within my business. We call those blue sky opportunities. So like where you can grow in order to add X amount of revenue or
okay.
So anyway, you put that together, then you go to market, then you have potential buyers. And these potential buyers, and this is where I spent a lot of my time, was in these management meetings with potential buyers, and they're trying to poke holes in the business. They're looking for the skeletons in the closet. They're looking for any reason to knock that price tag down bit by bit by bit. Strategic planning is one of those things that is highly undervalued. And vision is one of those things that is highly undervalued by business owners, but it comes into play in the due diligence process where they say, okay, do you have a strategic plan? Yes. Is it written down? No, you do not have a strategic plan.
Yeah.
And just
if it's in
because
your brain,
of
that doesn't count.
Yes, exactly. And so the value of your business is determined by a lot of factors. But what I tell everybody all the time is that preparing a company to sell and just building a strong, reliable, profitable business, it's the exact same process.
Interesting. Well, that kind of shoots a hole in what my next question was, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And that is, if selling is something that is in your mind, what kind of things should you be doing to prepare for that? For example, is that something you should be not maximizing the deductions on your tax returns, but maximizing what your income is showing on your tax returns?
Yeah. So what you're talking about is add backs, right? And so like these are I don't know how deep to go into this question.
I'd say let's keep it shallow at this point, and maybe that turns into a whole nother episode, but
yeah. So I guess if somebody is thinking about selling, what should they be doing right now? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Well, we want to look at what is the knowledge that you have that nobody else has, that if you were to remove, you were hit by the proverbial beer truck tomorrow,
right?
What would happen to the company?
Yeah.
We want to look, there's so much that you got to do to prepare. I don't want to overwhelm anybody.
Okay. All right.
But I would say we look, and what I refer to as the four pillars of business is people, process, planning, and profit.
Okay.
Are those systemized? Are they executed reliably, well, and regularly? Mm-hmm. If not, then we should start
work on that.
Yeah, we should start there.
Okay.
And then I think part of your question is like removing that owner from the essential day to day.
Yeah.
The more you are able to go on vacation and the business continues to run reliably, the more sellable of a business you have.
Well, I've heard that said before, that if you can't disappear for 2 weeks, and your business won't continue to run if you disappear for 2 weeks, you have a job, not a career.
Yeah, 100%.
Like not a business.
Yes.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap this up, and this might have to be a whole nother episode, but I'm curious what your thoughts. I mean, I keep hearing about this silver tsunami, and there's a whole bunch of baby boomers that are
Oh yeah.
ready to get rid of their businesses.
Yep.
And so I think there's potentially some good opportunities for people to come in and buy an existing business as opposed to starting their own. I'm a big Cody Sanchez fan. She talks about that all the time, like Main Streets instead of Wall Street, those kind of businesses. What are your thoughts on that? And maybe we have to do a whole other episode, but about how do you find out if a business is a good thing to buy? I know that's a long question.
Yeah, this is a whole nother episode. Gosh, you can come at it from so many different angles. There's like the data standpoint of it. Like you can look at the financials, you can look at their historical performance, you can look at their, like, do they even have a budget? How close are they to their budget? How tied into like realistic the reality of their business but then you can also like look at their reviews, look at their reputation, look at their employees. Like do they have high retention? Are their employees happy? How do their, like, one of the companies that I worked for, we used to say all the time it was held together by love. Because it truly was. There was no process. We all just loved the business. So
that
we
might
fought.
be harder to sell.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think that there's like I said, that's probably an entire different episode to think about that. But I guess I want to leave that open for people to think of that instead of just like, oh, I'd have to start it totally from scratch.
No.
I think that there are some good options out there right now. And might be some things to kind of look at. So
yeah. I guess maybe one easy low-hanging fruit would be customer concentration. Like looking at what is the percentage, how many customers make up the top 25 or 10% of their total sales.
Okay.
And if we're looking at how many customers make up the top 25%, if it's a very small number, then you have a huge exposure for the thing kind of toppling.
That makes sense because you lose one client and you're in it's painful.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So to kind of come full circle here with you, let's tell the listeners, when is the right time to bring you in? How do you know you should bring in a Jess?
So another quote that I love from The Road Less Stupid is, shiny shoes don't get you anywhere faster.
Okay.
And so in the same way that I think I hear a lot like, oh, we're just waiting for the right time to hire you. Like the right time is now. The 3 symptoms of someone that should hire me is somebody who is frustrated.
Okay.
A business owner who's just like, this issue keeps happening over and over and over and over again, or I put out that fire and this one starts and I just can't get ahead of it.
Yeah.
So you're frustrated. You've hit a plateau. Like we're stuck here. Like I've been trying to get over this hump, whether it be into a new territory, onboarding a new service, increasing your revenue, so on and so forth. So plateau, frustrated, or you're in transition. And that's where liminal comes from. The liminal ops is a transitionary space. You've left one place, you haven't arrived somewhere else. You're in that sort of messy middle.
Okay.
But we can still have momentum.
The messy middle. I like that. Well, and I think momentum is key. And you actually said something to me when I was saying, gosh, my husband needs to talk to you. And he's like, oh, not right now. This time of year is tough. And you were like, well, this is the perfect time of year. This is the beginning of the year. Because if he doesn't do it now, then he's going to be in the exact same place at the end of the year. And I was like, oh, damn, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
So if you're looking for something to change, my coach said something the other day, if you're not changing it, you're choosing it. And I really liked that. It kind of just stuck with me around like, you know what? That is an excellent point. If I am not choosing to do the hard things to change that thing, I am choosing to stay where I'm at.
Yeah. And similar, not to pick on your husband, but I had one mentor tell me at one point, stop saying you didn't have time and start saying you didn't make it a priority.
Yes, I've heard that exact same thing as well, because I've heard like if you think you don't have time, show me the screen time on your phone.
That's another tough one.
That is a painful one. And I would be embarrassed to show anybody my screen time because I do so many things on my phone. Yes. Not all of them productive, by the way. I fully admit it. So you think you don't have time, you do. You just need to take time out from something else. So, okay. So a million good ideas here. You guys, you're going to just have to stay tuned to see what the next episode is that we bring, because I think there's about 17 different spinoffs we can do from this. But do check out whatever the next episode is here. We'll chat and come up with that here momentarily. But as we kind of close out here, what is one idea that business owners should take away? Like, let's end this with something that's actionable, memorable, and something that they're just going to remember. There's been a ton of bars, but what's one thing that you think that people should take away from this?
I think if I'm speaking to business owners directly, it's the man in the arena quote.
Okay.
And I've talked about it, I think, with you before, but it talks about how, because I see business owners kind of shoulding. You used that the other day.
Shoulding all over yourself.
Yes, shoulding all over yourself. SHOULDING is what we're saying. But they're hard on themselves.
Yeah.
They carry shame, they carry fear of failure, they carry all of their employees' hearts.
Yeah.
They carry the burden of their customers and all of this, and they spend so much time emotionally laboring over, did I make the right decision? Was that the right choice? Should I have done it differently? So on and so forth.
Yeah.
You made exactly the right decision for the
That
decision
time.
of the time.
Yeah.
And if you are willing, open, humble, then you can learn from it and you can continue to grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, if you don't know the man in the arena quote, I know that's not super actionable, I guess.
That's okay.
In terms of creating profit, but hopefully it'll keep people sane.
Well, and I do think there is something to just making a decision. I will butcher this quote, but I read something once that said, you know, the right decision is obviously the best decision, but the second best decision is the wrong decision, because no decision is absolutely the worst thing that you can do. Not doing anything is the worst. So take a step one direction or the other. We've talked a lot on the podcast in recent episodes about failure and how people are afraid to fail, but failure is just, you're learning a way that something didn't work. It doesn't mean it's forever. The only way to fail is to stop.
Yeah.
You just have to keep going, trying the next thing, find the opportunity. And I think for most businesses, mine for sure, that the world changes constantly and you have to adapt and you have to grow. And I've seen this with other mortgage professionals that if you're not growing, you're kind of dying.
Yeah.
If you are still trying to build your business the way that you did 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago, frankly, it's not going very well for most people. Like, you have to reinvent yourself. You have to reinvent your process. You have to reinvent your sales strategy. And I'm sure that's true with most businesses.
Yeah. And maybe one note to leave people with that will hopefully expose them to something that could help is I've worked in and around a lot of different operating systems. I do like EOS. The book Traction kind of walks through all of the different tools of EOS. I think that they are simple and defensible. I think that they're easy to learn and they're hard to disprove. So read Traction.
And by the way, it's not something you just read. I have quote unquote read that book. Like, it gives you homework. You have to sit down and do the thinking and it is very actionable. It will actually put things into place if you want things to change. So you have to choose to do that. But it is a very good thing. So as we close, tell everybody how they can connect with you if they're interested in potentially hiring you, or they just want to follow you or learn more from you. What's the best way to connect?
Yeah. So I'm not industry specific. I've yet to find an industry that doesn't work for me.
Interesting.
And I like discovery calls or lunches.
Okay.
I think just sitting down and hearing about, like, what are the issues within your business? Hopefully in that lunch, I can provide some value for you that in there, even if we don't work together on a long-term basis. And then, email, text message, on my website.
What's your website?
www.prosperitybooks.com. liminalopsconsulting.com. So that's LIMINAL ops, OPS consulting.com.
And any social media that people can follow yet?
Oh,
or that's
gosh.
a work in progress?
Yes, so there is a social media handle out there at
Okay.
liminalopsconsulting.com, or not .com, Liminal Ops Consulting, and I will be posting soon, so stay
All right,
tuned.
go follow that, and that will give her more pressure to post more things. This has been a theme with my last couple of guests. We're going to get everybody's going on their social media, so there's more things to follow. So I definitely do recommend, if you're local to Bozeman, sit down with Jess and go to lunch. I had so many takeaways from a coffee appointment with her that my brain almost exploded. It was amazing. So there's the only way to truly know her value is to sit down with her. So if this has been valuable, please do stay tuned for the next episode. And also make sure that you like, subscribe, share this with somebody else. Almost everybody, especially in Bozeman, knows a business owner. We used to joke that our yellow pages were bigger than our white pages. It's not funny anymore because we don't have phone books and nobody gets it, but it used to be very true. So, so share this with somebody that you know that needs a little bump in their business or wants to sell a business someday. And thank you for your listening. And here's to empowering each other one story at a time.